Hey folks, it's Sir Nick Justice here with Fan Expo Dallas, just days away. We've prepared something special for you here ahead of time for all the time travelers, nostalgia lovers, and pop culture fanatics tuning in. Joining me today is an actor who's quite literally somebody who has stepped into one of the most iconic film franchises of all time. You know him as George McFly from Back to the Future Part 2 and 3, Twilight Zone, the movie, Clint Eastwood, Pale Rider, and so much more. Please welcome the incredible Jeffrey Weissman.
Incredible. Yeah. I I'm incredible.
Hey, I love it. Look at that. Those are some crazy glasses. Um, Jeffrey, how's it going? Are you feeling the Fan Expo energy yet?
Oh yeah. Dallas is the third, I think it's the third fan expo that I've been invited to this year. We started with New Orleans in January. It was right after Mike had been presented the Medal of Freedom Award
Yes.
from President Biden. And so I was able to congratulate him. He grabbed me and said, I feel like I'm a kid again. I'm 14. I want to go out into the parking lot. It was really great to see him.
That's so
And last month, gosh, it's been kind of a whirlwind for me. I was up in Calgary with Mike and Chris, and we and James Tolkien and Claudia Wells, and we were given the white cowboy hats by the mayor of Calgary for the opening of the Fan Expo there,
that's so
which is
cool.
sort of like getting the key to the city. So it's
Yeah.
been very exciting. And Dallas Pizza Hut sold these when back part out. Dallas is kind of close to my heart because my mother was there. I have relatives still there, and I, as a kid, came to Dallas to meet her parents and my grandparents, and so I've got friends who live there and family not too far away, also in Oklahoma City. So relatives coming to visit. I'm happy about that too, and the
That's
fans, of
awesome.
course.
Yes, of course. And, just to kind of go back here in time, just because this weekend is going to be so jam-packed, I don't know how everybody's going to have the time to meet everybody, but of course we are going to be seeing so many Back to the Future cast members. This might be the biggest Fan Expo Back to the Future reunion I've ever seen.
It's the second biggest. The
Second biggest.
first
Okay.
first biggest, a lot of people didn't even know about. It was at the Hollywood show in 2008.
Oh,
So
yes,
we're
Hollywood shows.
go back 18 years or whatever it was, and uh, there were over 2 dozen cast and crew lined up in the lobby of the hotel where that show was taking place, or the where it was near the airport in Burbank, and uh, and Mike was unannounced. He happened to be in Los Angeles to announce or promote rather his new book, and he came by on Sunday without telling anyone that he was coming. So the cast reunion, the fans that were there for it, the 500 fans, just went nuts
I believe it.
because it was the first time of any Back to the Future cast reunion at all. And let's see if I can find a shot from that show. Um, Gosh, 2008. I have to go way back. Um, no, I'm not. I got a bunch of other shows here. This one if I can figure out my screen sharing here, I can show you, was in 2015 at the London Film and Comic Con.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
We had I think it was 11. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 13 of us, and Andrew Probert, who was on the design team of the Time Machine DeLorean. He's in the audience. I got him to stand. Uh, the show in New Jersey in 22 had, I think, 13. So 11 in London, 13 in New Jersey at the Chiller event. And that was the first time Burton Gilliam had joined us
Oh,
from
wow.
part three. And now on this one, Matt Clark from Back to the Future
Yes.
Part coming. And this one has 15. 15
Yes.
of cast and crew. So it's very exciting. I'm loving it in that you, we get off, we connect with the fans when they get excited, and when there's that many of the cast and crew, the fans are, it's electric.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to be going 88 miles per hour internally just from the
Ah,
amount of excitement. And to go back in time here, just to kind of talk about your role a little bit as George McFly, going after Crispin Glover, that was a bold time machine to step into. You had to endure hours of prosthetics and makeup for that older George McFly scenes. What was that like physically and mentally?
well, first of all, I was friendly with Crispin. We had worked on a film together in '83. And when I went to see the summer competition in '85, since I was co-starring with Clint Eastwood and Pale Rider that year, uh, when Crispin came on the screen, I was like, hey, I know that guy, and just loved what he did with the character of George. And I even called him to congratulate him. And then 4 years later, when I was called up to be a photo double for George, I thought, oh, I guess they're going to have George in multiple places at the same time, like they did with
Okay.
Mike.
Yeah.
And, and it wasn't until really kind of the 11th hour that I was told, first I was told Crispin uh, had schedule conflicts with another project and that he couldn't come back to reprise the role. And I was like, my God, they can't do it without him? How is that
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah.
And then it was my makeup artist who told me, oh, Crispin's out. You're gonna be Joy. I said, how? Why? What?
Yeah.
No. So it was kind of funky in that production wasn't kind of on the up and up with me. I wasn't told everything. You can see here hopefully that's coming through, the three
Yes.
different makeups I wore, uh, age 17 and 77 in part two, and age 47 in part three. And when I first came on the set, the first things we shot were the Enchantment Under the Sea dance recreation and the fight with Biff, George and Biff out in the parking lot. And Mike and Leah, they're all looking at me in this makeup, going, "That doesn't look right. What the heck?"
Yeah.
And what I think had happened, Crispin, as it turned out, that I learned from Spielberg, of all people, came up to me during production and said, "So, Crispin, I see you got your $1 million after all." And I was like, "What?" Uh, so then I realized, oh, I'm just saving them money, you
Yeah.
know. And so he also apparently wanted script approval, but the production, I can see, was stuck because they had to have him, but they couldn't have him, and
Yeah.
I was the answer. So it was very odd. And
Yeah.
when part three came out, Crispin called me up and said, it wasn't fair. I said, what wasn't fair? And they, splicing close-ups of him from part one with my work in part two, uh, he was only going to get scale for a day for the reuse of that. And I was like, my God, it was the highest grossing film of 1985. They're only going to give
Yeah.
me $1,200 or whatever it was. And then he said, and there was no agreement made for use of his life mask in my makeups. And I was like, that's not right. That's
Yeah.
morally, that's not right. And also, you should have made a deal. Um, so I gave him my pictures and stories, and he went after them, and he got a pretty good settlement of three quarters of $1 million. And I got to be a part of this amazing cast. Unfortunately, the diehard Crispin fans, which I'm one,
Okay.
I'm this scab or this pariah, and it's really unfortunate. And what I love about the Dallas show coming up,
Mhm.
that I've got to share this poster again.
Please.
That the thing you never see on any poster until now is that if you look closely, there's both Claudia Wells and Elizabeth Shue, the two Jennifer,
Yes.
the two
Yes.
Jennifers for the first time are going to be a show together, which I think
So
it
it's
should
it's
be
huge.
posters too, in my
And
opinion.
and that's exactly. I mean, I noticed that that's kind of how we started engaging online here is They didn't have a dual photo op session, and I'm so glad you're able to talk about, the situation of you taking on this role, being able to save the film franchise and fill in such a critical role, especially for Marty, that you were able to continue role so excellent. Were you
Well,
studying it
I
over and
wish I
over?
could have, I personally wish I could have done more. If I was literally thrown into the deep end in the 11th hour. They were
Yeah,
hoping to make a last minute deal with Crispin, I'm sure.
yeah,
When I got on set, example, in the 2015 McFly home, uh, I remember Zemeckis divvying out George's lines to Leah and Mike. And I was like, hey guys, I can act. I I can act. I could take
yeah.
those lines. And so I got a few of the lines back and was able to improvise some things, but I wasn't part of, say, the cast readings or development of characters.
Yeah.
For preparing for young George, Bob Gale gave me uh, I don't know, an hour or more of footage of screen tests and makeup tests. And in them, Crispin and Tom or Leah and Crispin are improvising, just developing the characters. Yeah, in one makeup test, old age makeup, you actually hear Tom come up with what Irish script. I think Tom improvised that, and it worked so well in this makeup test that they kept it in. And a lot of this wonderful, wonderful improv between Leah and Crispin. And I remember hanging out with Billy Zane while we were on Not Needed for some of the fight stuff,
Yeah.
Enchantment Under the Sea dance footage. And Billy all of a sudden at one point said, you know what? I I think Leah was in love with Crispin. I was like, huh? And it kind of made sense because their rapport in the screen tests, the character development things that I have is really lovely. And I know she went over to his place and because he invited her over to paint a painting together as
Oh,
rehearsal of a volcano. And one of the stories I heard is that Crispin brought it in to the set and demanded Zemeckis, Bob Z, put it on the McFly home wall. And Bob Z was like, I got an art director. I can't step on his toes. No, it's too late. No, no. And
yeah.
Crispin, but Crispin was a bit of a problem child. The stories I heard were pretty hair raising, of kind of unprofessional stuff of not hitting his marks for camera. And also, to set the record straight, because this has become an urban legend,
Okay.
that George is hanging upside down in the ortholab of the future to disguise that it's a different actor. Well, I came in the 11th hour. That hanging upside down of George was always in the script.
Yeah.
Apparently, on the first film, Crispin, who is a very intense actor and very into, you know, doing everything but the technical stuff, like hitting
Yeah.
his mark for camera. So he would either over or under for frame.
Ah, got it.
And so the Bobs thought, well, if we have him on this device, we can run this track from outside the front door through the living room and into the kitchen and hang him upside down. We can control his moves and he'll always be on mark. So that's to blow that urban legend that it was to disguise that it was a different actor. Uh, and I remember one of the crew coming up to me while we were shooting saying, while I'm upside down, all this hanging upside down was meant to torture Crispin. And I was like, okay, well, I get to do it. And at that moment, I should have thought I didn't negotiate my stunt pay. I was deserved.
Oh, yeah.
What's the statute of limitations on that? I deserve some stunt pay, I think, for hanging upside down for the better part of 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, here I am.
Did you have any issues afterwards, from hanging down? Like,
I I had
you
I
never passed out?
stress on my back and I had claustrophobia already. And when we did the one scene with the pizza coming out and hydrating in 4 seconds, and it was cut. Oh yeah, there you go. Hey, did I sign that?
You did. You
Um,
did. I think it was right when it was around COVID time era. I remember that, and you had done a signing, I believe, with Team AA Gilbert, uh,
Those
and
who are watching who want that, come and I'll bring some of those. Uh, so I was in a body cast to do the effect. When the pizza comes out, Lorraine says, "George, rotate your axis for dinner. It's bad for your digestion to eat upside down." And I go, "Okay, four," and I rotate, doing my tribute Crispin choking laugh,
yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah,
and spin very slowly. And she puts the pizza on the floor, which didn't make any sense. And that's probably why it didn't stay in the film. But
makes
you can
sense.
see it. Those at home watching, uh, in the deleted scene, bonus material, it's called Pizza, of all things. And it's not corrected, but it's kind of cool to see. And I get to do some comedy. Another bit of comedy that was cut that I improvised, uh, because we had a lot of time doing this scene around the dinner table,
Hmm.
because Mike playing multiple characters, it would take 3 hours for every costume and makeup
Yeah,
change for him to step into Marlene, Marty Jr., Marty Sr. And we would do all sorts of coverage. One of the coverage pieces that I really hoped would have stayed in, I'm going to take just a moment here to find a still from it because it
okay.
didn't stay in. So it's kind of weird.
Appreciate you
But
sharing.
do you remember Fruit Please?
Yes,
And the device came from the
right.
ceiling and gave gave you fruit, whatever fruit you wanted. Well, Lorraine says to Marlene, "Give your granddad a piece of fruit," and she gives me a banana. And so here I am trying to eat a banana upside down, and the peel kept slapping me in the face, which which was pretty funny. And I think Zemeckis liked it too, but it didn't stay in the final cut. But
Yeah.
there you go. There's some rarity, and I'll have that rare shot in Dallas.
Ooh, that's awesome. You heard it here,
Okay.
fans. This coming weekend, I mean, we're only getting started here, just talking with Jeffrey about his role.
I have to tell you, you being a knight and everything, I was since a teenager, I kind of ran away as a teenager, ran away with the circus and went and
Okay.
joined the Renaissance Fair.
Okay.
I
The best.
started doing the Ren Fair in what, 73,
Yeah.
and uh, I had off and on, many years of doing those fairs. There's one fair that I did where I was the mascot for the fair. Can
Wow.
is Yeah, and I'm currently playing the mayor of a beautiful fair up at Lake Tahoe in
Okay.
August. In talks for that contract. Um, but so I had to throw that in since you're certain.
Absolutely. Oh, I appreciate that. Um, let me ask you here. So you popped in Pale Rider, Twilight Zone, the movie, Saved by the Bell. What stands out as one of your wildest experience? Was it Back to the Future? Was it any of these other roles? Was it something that you did via your teaching directing?
They're all kind of wild, I tell you. uh, this shot, if you can see it, where brother Eddie and I, Teddy Conway, are watching with Richard Hamilton as Blankenship, the mercantile keeper, holding us back from being shot by the bad guys as they're shooting Daddy from head to toe. Now you see, there's little white dots all over this
Yeah.
shot. That's because we were shooting in a blizzard.
Okay. I was gonna say it looks like snow.
Yeah, to get this shot, it took us 3 days to do this scene, for Clint to get all the coverage. And the first day, there was snow on the ground, but we were in sunshine. So if you look at Doug McGrath playing Spider, come up with his bottle drinking, and he's got the rock, and he calls in LaHood, you see he's in sunlight, and there's snow on the ground. And then when it cuts back to us in the mercantile, you can see a little bit of the snow. And then when the deputies come out, and they start shooting at him, it goes from cloudy to sunlight,
Okay.
because they had to, the magnificent editor had to pretty much cut 3 days together seamlessly. And on the third day, when we finally raced to Daddy's dead body in the snow, there was no snow. All the snow had melted,
Oh my gosh.
and they brought in the oil-based fake snow.
Yeah.
So look at the scene carefully. When I'm crying over Daddy's dead body, I remember Chuck, Clint often shoots rehearsals.
Mhm.
And so in the rehearsal, Chuck went to where we had agreed that I would go. And so I, at the last minute, slide over to where Chuck was supposed to be at Daddy's head on the ground and almost kicked poor Doug in the head. And then when Blankenship comes to gather the boys from the dead body, he kicks up some of the fake snow, and the wind picks it up in chunks like this and blows it away. So it's very obviously fake snow because it doesn't act like that. And then the quick cuts, you'll see some are in blizzard and some are in sunshine. And that's uh, because Clint built that town on the top of a mountain in a national forest. So wherever Bruce Surtees, our cinematographer, put his camera, he had the Sawtooth, the White Cloud, or the Salmon River Mountains as a beautiful backdrop. Pale Rider is absolutely gorgeous to look at. The stories.
Those that are interested in getting a signature from you this weekend, correct?
Okay.
Yes, I think there's going to be a lot of fans out there that absolutely need to get that as part of their Jeffrey Weissman collection.
I'll have a few of these as the High Geek from Saved by the Bell, as Screech's Guru, and I'll bring some from other projects. I have, not very many people know that I played Mark Twain in a PBS movie called Dreamland. Mark Twain in Jerusalem, about his
Wow.
trip in 1867. And we did pretty much guerrilla filmmaking, because as you can see, there's a shot there from the Damascus Gate of me sitting up in the window of the Damascus Gate, and me at the Wailing Wall as Mark Twain. And you can't get permits to film there. They don't
Wow.
allow it. So we
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
shot on the slide. And I remember I went up as Twain with our cinematographer to the Israeli guard with his machine at the stairway to Damascus Gate, and said, well, I'm from Hollywood. We're shooting this film about Mark Twain. Possible because there's modern day flea market at the bottom of the gate, and it doesn't look right. Play 1867, but Twain sitting up there writing would look really. And he pointed his machine gun right at me. He said, because I pulled out $20 to try to
Yeah.
bribe him.
Yeah.
And he said, put your money away
Oh
and
my
get up there
gosh.
now. Okay.
Oh wow.
And it was pretty crazy. I like the adventures, not so much being with a machine gun. Someone recently, a fan actually from my work on Scarecrow and Mrs. King, printed this up of my character from Saved by the Bell. You can do those AI
Yeah.
action figures. And then I was kind of surprised when I got the audition. My agent called for me to audition for George Miller, the director of Mad Max and Babe and all those wonderful movies, to be uh, in the Twilight Zone movie.
Classic.
The two children lost their lives. Spielberg decided that he wanted to complete the film. And I went in and had a great meeting with George Miller and ended up being part of this ensemble. I'm over here on, I guess it's my left, maybe your right. I'm not sure. I've got the long hair here in
Yeah.
the side there, working with John Lithgow and Donna Dixon and J.D. Johnson, J.D., who also was in Pale Rider. It was just a dream set to be a part of because, Kevin Pike reminded me in Paris or in the south of France just a couple of weeks ago, where I was doing a fan con over there. Cosplayers de Coup of the Heart was the name of that show. that he was in charge of the special effects on that episode of Twilight Zone movie. He
Okay.
said we had to keep that fuselage rocking the whole time, and the fog on the after the plane lands, which the fog wouldn't stay on the ground. He had a lot of nightmares on that shoot. I was like, Kevin, we've done multiple films together, and he got his start on Jaws, and just kept going from there. So it was really exciting for me because I teach acting,
Yes, exactly. Can you talk a
and
little bit more about that?
yeah, I watching John Lithgow, who is weaned on stage, who really told it for movie. George Miller was doing the opposite. He wanted it bigger, bigger, and so John was ecstatic. He was like, I'm never told to make it bigger. This is wonderful, because of the terror that his character is going through. And also, a side note, in New Orleans, it was the first time I got to meet William Shatner. And I broke the ice by saying, I was in the remake of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, which later our version was Nightmare at 30,000 Feet.
Mhm.
And Shatner said, I was supposed to be in that. I
Wow.
was going to do a cameo, and then a conflict came up. I said, that would have been very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry that didn't happen. But so then after Twilight Zone movie, I worked with Sean Penn on Crackers, Louis Malle directing, with Donald Sutherland and company, Wallace Shawn, and then worked on Johnny Dangerously with Michael Keaton.
Yes.
And I've been very
Classic.
watching Michael Keaton up close and his style of acting, John Lithgow's style of acting, watching Michael J. Fox, whose formula for comedy is infallible, and watching Clint Eastwood put everything at the end of his nose and it'll look like he's not doing anything at all, and that it's full once it's up on the big screen. So I've been able to really help my students by getting them to put their toe in the water on different exercises by the acting gurus, whether it's Meisner, Adler, or Strasberg, or
Yeah.
the different eras of Stanislavski, and and see what really works for them, because of all these actors that I'm mentioning, they all use different techniques, and
Yeah.
there isn't one size fits all. There are some that are pretty well proven, but you need to, I think, experience, you know, to see what resonates for yourself. So here I'm going to share some of the projects that I've been in. So, I loved working with Dick Van Dyke on Diagnosis Murder, because starting in 1987, I started playing Stanley Laurel and Hardy at Universal Studios, and Dick was very close to Stanley Laurel. So we spent the whole day when we weren't on set talking about Stanley Laurel and Buster Keaton and Dick's wonderful works. And like I mentioned, the Scarecrow and Mrs. King did the 40-year reunion of Scarecrow last year. And I guess I was as surprised. Most of these 600 fan reunion had already in previous years met most of the cast.
Yeah.
And they all remember me from the first season. I was in the, I guess, second highest rated episode of that season as
Wow.
guest star. The first time when Kate and Bruce's characters finally kissed. But everyone liked my character. I was a amateur filmmaker parking lot attendant who gets kidnapped, and I got to reprise the role because a fan wrote a script of us reprising our roles,
Oh
and when
my
I pulled
gosh.
out, wore my jacket, they all just went nuts. It was really fun because I got kind of mobbed by these obsessive fans, which is rare for me. Um, so it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And of course, you mentioned if you do teaching, they can reach to you on your website for signing up for those classes, or how does that work?
Yes. Well, since the pandemic, uh, I've been mostly focused on teaching either in person, where I'm either bringing someone into where I live now up in the Sierra foothills, or I go to them on set and coach, or coach privately to their home, or we rent a studio. The studio I had with the Bay Area professional actors studio is no more, and the San Francisco Acting Academy is no more. So I'm mostly a virtual on teaching, but you can reach me through jeffreyweissman.com. I have a shop there as well, and also lots of stories from my different projects I've done. People don't realize that I'm a variety entertainer, and I also do living history. I'm a docent at the Columbia State Historic Park, and I give town
Very
tours as a
cool.
flim flam man, or Mark Twain. And in fact, I have a gig coming up as Twain. That's why I'm growing this, so I don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
see it. I see it. Yeah, that makes much more
have the
sense.
glue mustache on. When it gets hot, the mustache after a while goes flap, flap, and I'm like, no, not in front of the audience, please. So I have a couple of gigs actually coming up as Twain, and I'm developing a one show like Val Kilmer and Hal Brook, where I deal more with Twain's shadow life. He had a lot of
Okay.
contradictory, controversial things throughout his life, and I want to explore all that. That's a
Interesting.
pet project of mine.
Now, is Mark Twain a historical figure that had always fascinated you? Was it one that, you grew, you fit into the role, and researched it and just
Well,
like,
I I didn't read Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer growing up, but I didn't really get into him until I was cast as Twain. I was called in to audition for this Mark Twain PBS project, which was originally called Mark Twain in Jerusalem, something Adventures in Jerusalem. Well, anyway, it was re branded as Dreamland, Mark Twain's Adventure in Jerusalem, something like this, with Martin Sheen doing most of the narration. And that's when I finally read the book, is that the trip was paid for by 5 different newspapers that he got to write weekly articles for. They paid the $2,000 ticket for him to go on the first commercial cruise line, basically out of New York to Europe and the Holy Land. All these celebrities backed out of the trip, and Twain turned out to be pretty much the biggest celebrity on board. The rest were mostly priests and pious people who wanted to go see the Holy Land.
okay,
And so he was the complete antithesis of most of the passengers. He was gambling and drinking, the whole cruise, and writing about his observations. And when they got to the Holy Land, a lot of these pious folk and priests were chipping away at these ancient relics and holy sites to bring back to their churches and to their congregations. So his first book, when he got back to the States, he purchased all his articles for these 5 different newspapers back and read it, and comprised his first, and during his lifetime, best-selling book, The Innocents Abroad, or The Pilgrim's Progress. And
okay.
the reason it was the best-selling book was that his main distributor had this fleet of door-to-door Bible salesmen.
Ah,
And a lot of people already had a Bible, and they said, "What else you got?" And he says, "Well, I got this thing by a guy named Mark Twain." It was like the first American travel log, the first American voice
yeah.
in traveling abroad, and it was chock full of humor. And that really put Mark Twain on the map. And then his next trip, he went to the Sandwich Islands, where he got terribly sick for 3 months. I'm not sure if he got a social disease or what, but he came
Yeah.
close to death there. But his Roughing It book covers the Sandwich Islands, and it's hilarious, absolutely hysterical stuff in it, and also talks about almost setting the Lake Tahoe on fire accidentally, and a lot of other adventures that people don't know about him.
You know,
Um,
that's so crazy. Like, now this is going to be, you're going to be reprising his role, I believe you said a couple times. Have you had any fans, or you think you'll see any fans bring a Mark Twain book or anything like that for you to sign?
I hope so. I've had a few of the stills that I brought from the Mark Twain Dreamland project I've signed for fans, and I've had fans show up when I'm playing Twain, and say, "Oh, you're George McFly." No, 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 I'm Twain. you know, when I worked at Universal, I have stalkers who would come up while I'm playing Stanley Laurel or Charlie Chaplin, and video me and take photo. It's George McFly. I was like, yeah, I'm Stanley Laurel.
Yeah,
It
it's
gets
almost like
complicated.
they love you so much, even though you're this one character. It's like I have to check you out in this other character.
I have some that write me daily.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, in its own way. Hopefully nothing too crazy. I'm sure they're great conversations. And of course, if you're a fan, you can meet him this coming weekend at Fan Expo
Yeah.
Dallas. Please have your items. If you don't, he's going to have some items there that you'll be able to get signed, of course.
Oh
It's
yeah.
going to be massive. Like we're going to be seeing so many cast members: Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Tom Wilson, just to name a few. I mean, we're going to have Huey Lewis there. It's insane. Um, what are some of the expectations, or what are you looking forward to most this weekend?
Union, it's electric. The first of all the to be there really like each other a lot. There's a lot of history now with cast reunions, and I in 2015 my wife produced a fundraiser cruise, and I brought six of the cast and crew onto that cruise. Dean Cundy, our cinematographer, Kevin Pike and Andrew Probert, and Don Fullilove and Harry Waters Jr. and Mark McClure. And we even formed a band called Mr. Fusion, play an hour on board Enchantment Under the Sea dance. And it was magical for the 60 Back to the Future fans that came. They're still talking about it. And it was, but we made great memories and great fans and friends. And when we get together, the Mike is such a great guy, funny, and done others with Parkinson's by raising now over $2 billion for
Yes.
research towards a. It's tragic, and getting that Medal of Freedom award, and even though he's now pretty much has to be in the wheelchair because he falls and breaks bones, he's still feisty and still full, and a lot of love that Tom and Chris. And it's just it's kind of a never ending wonderful thing, and getting back together when you make a film, it's like a family. And that's why I really feel everyone is shortchanged, that Crispin and Bob Gale don't make up, and Crispin become come back because he was so vital to that that'd be really a great thing, like what we're going to see in Dallas with Elizabeth Shue and Claudia for the first time, the two Jennifers.
Yeah, there is no weird stigma or anything like that between the two Jennifers.
Jennifer, and that's my, the I don't think there's any stigma between Claudia and Elizabeth. I've never heard of any, and Claudia certainly
Okay.
hasn't mentioned it. And Elizabeth was just a gem to work with. I have some photos, candid photos, where she hung out with me for a while in my dressing room, and she was just super lovely. Yeah, I adore Elizabeth. So we shall see. But the panel on Saturday at 3, 12 of us in that, and I don't think Elizabeth is
Huge.
part of that. I think this is actually been out of the war. You'd hear a lot of screaming.
That's for sure. I think we're going to be seeing an insane amount of cosplays from Back to the Future. I know you'll see me there as a Marty. Do you think you'll see any cosplays? Anybody hanging upside down or mimicking upside down of your
Oh,
character
that
there?
no, I see generally young George.
Okay.
The
The white suit.
cosplayers that do George. Yeah, it's usually there's different ages of Biff. I've seen those, and let's see if I can find the only one. There's only in all my years have I seen one George cosplay that was the old George.
Okay.
This is worth. worth finding. So give me a second here.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's Dexter. Yes, there he is. Okay. So there's these international Uber fans that go to the that are and a couple from Denmark, Thomas. The picture of the old
Ah,
George
here it
cross
is. Here it is.
through.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That is the food dispenser.
So that's Dexter at 1 years old. He was only upside down for 10 seconds to get the photo.
Oh my gosh. And I love the hair aspect because that was such a defining thing of your character being upside down. And to really know that you're upside down for up to almost 3 weeks just doing these shots, that's incredible. Thank you for going through that for us.
Yeah, well, it was actually about 6 days over a 2 week period
Okay.
because they didn't need me. And they didn't like getting me down, by the way. Zemeckis was like taking it was taking way too much time. He went to Don Elliott, who got the Academy Award for Life of Pi special effects, and he said, "Don, is there something you can do where we don't have to get Jeffrey down in between every take?" And so Don built on the top of a ladder a board, and he would, at the end of a take, would say, "Jeffrey, do a sit up." And so I'd do a sit up. He'd slide underneath me, and then everyone would go off and have coffee, and I'd be on the set all alone, twiddling my thumb.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, at least you were somewhat comfortable.
Yeah, I had a pillow,
That's
and the and
crazy.
the hours were insanely long because Mike was doing the final season of Family Ties during the day, and we only had him, some nights and weekends,
Yeah.
and we would work straight through. We'd work straight through the weekend, and those hours, some of those days were as much as 26 hours long, and then we'd have to be back in the makeup chair less than 8 hours later. So here's a shot. I don't know if that's very big, if you can see that or not.
Yeah. I can't even especially because, we live in a day where you can do CGI and stuff like that. We just turn you upside down. This was practical effects, of course, going with the times. Do you feel that practical effects are still the way to go for everything, or do you like a mixture of the two? Do you like all digital?
It's it's a kind of subjective in that I have mixed feelings, of course, for AI. I don't care for the way AI has replaced really great
Mhm.
model effects and stuff, especially with like the Star Wars. It was I thought a just criminal that Lucas closed that Kerner Optical, the his model shop, and a lot of those great crew folk who made the models, and they stuck with that place and still worked on wonderful films like Bruce Almighty and Pirates of the Caribbean and so on and so forth, doing model work. But it wasn't sustainable, and when it became 3210 and survived for a couple more years, and just this last year closed forever. And that's kind of heartbreaking. There's still a lot of great makeup artists out there still using practical effects. Uh, I think for the demands of quick turnaround in production, that CGI is a must-have for the industry. It scares me though that AI now you can see kind of disturbing films of little babies doing swear words and things, or you can
The things
see
that you can do with AI that aren't exactly culture
I,
appropriate.
I'm know it's going to happen. That an interview that I've done here is going to be manipulated
Mm.
and turned into something foul, and it's going to be me forever, like I do on social networks, trying to correct urban legend or set people straight. You know,
Absolutely.
it's a crazy new dawn, but like generations before us, they went through advancements in technology, and a lot of them were controversial. And this is our time and our controversy now with AI and um, yeah, that sort of loss of humanity. You know, a lot of I saw with my sons, you know, yesterday being my youngest son's 36, a lot of their generation was lost doing this, you know,
Yeah.
playing games that you know, when I was growing up, Pac-Man and Space Invaders, you know, that their generation was revolutionized by Doom and then
Yeah.
Theft Auto, and you know, now it's immersive with
The VR
the
goggles.
glasses. Well, I'm not opposed to it. I'd like to actually be an actor in a virtual environment and either use my I have tons of improvisation training,
Yeah.
and I would love to use that because like what we did at Renaissance fairs or
Mhm.
the Dickens fairs, where we're in character for 8 hours and improvising and using scripted. Uh, I'd love to do that immersively inside an environment. So
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that on one hand. On the other,
Yeah.
it's also scary and thrilling.
Absolutely. And it's crazy, here we are. Today is of course the present. We're talking about the past and we're already thinking about the future. Whether it's a bright one, hopefully humanity can come together to be able to use AI for good. In the meantime, we need human actors. We need people on set. We need culture and humans within the acting universe. JeffreyWeissman.com and reach out to Jeffrey to sign up and get your coaching. And of
Yeah,
course,
or
online.
I've done it worldwide virtually, been able to. I actually learned how to make a lot of things, especially during the pandemic, learned how to reach through the camera of the computer and have some nice production value. And you know, because of the AI we're talking about, everyone cited me as Crispin George as a precursor to what we're going through now. And so I became popular again and went to work trying to correct urban legends and set people straight. Uh, so it's you know, what goes around, comes around. Good, take it. Yeah. I'll see you in Dallas.
Yes, sir. For everybody who's watching in this weekend, Dallas Comic Con, it's gonna go down. You can meet Jeffrey Weissman, George McFly himself, Mark Twain, so many roles. You will have Prince there. Maybe he'll even bring some of his Hydrate Level 5 Pizza Hut replicas. Maybe you can get that signed. And on top of that, you can meet all the other cast members, Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, so much more.
I'm gonna use,
Your tickets ahead of time. If you head over to fanexpoheadquarters.com/Fan Expo Dallas, you can actually go ahead and pre-order your tickets now for your autograph or photo ops with Jeffrey Weissman. I'm Sir Nick Justice with my guest, Jeffrey, and we'll see you in the future.